Hi, welcome back to Learn Payload with Colin. That's me. I'm Colin Brown, and this is my series, my first 100 videos, and we're on lesson number 19. We're still going through a lot of different authentication stuff within Payload. And yesterday, I released a video on lesson 18 on custom fields, and I needed a custom field for a project that I've been working on, and the field was to have I needed a password field or a way to mask a value in the admin panel. So I didn't want I wanted it to act as a password field. It's not strictly a password, but it's like an API key. I'm storing some keys like for GitHub client IDs and client secrets, and I needed a way to mask it like a password, and I got all that working. The video went really quickly. The video, I published it, and then I got a comment from one of you guys in on that video saying it would probably be nice if I also encrypted the value in the database. And so what that would mean is it's not like a password encryption where it's one way. Usually passwords are encrypted with algorithm called bcrypt, and that's a one-way encryption. You can't decrypt it. You can only match it. So, like when a user enters their password when they're logging in, you can then decrypt the input of that password, and then compare that with the encrypted version, the bcrypted version in the database. But I don't want that. I want to be able to encrypt a value, store that encrypted value in the database, and then as I'm reading it out of the database, decrypt it for display in the custom field in the admin panel. So that was actually fairly straightforward. Payload within the payload local API, the object that you get has a decrypt and encrypt function attached to it, a method, and all that's needed now is to add some hooks to our custom fields so that when right before it's being saved to the database, you take the value and you encrypt it, and then there's another hook you need so that when it's finally out of the data, when it's getting read out of the database, we now want to just display it in its decrypted value to the user. And so that's what we're going to do. Let's check it out. Okay, so yesterday we went through this code fairly quickly. This is our custom password field, and I'll leave a link in the description to make sure if you haven't seen this, how I built this custom field for the admin panel. And it's a password field that has an input of type password or text. I have a little toggle button. Uh, and so let's get this running. Okay, so we're running our dev server, and let's go to the admin panel. We have our global, so you can see here we have our little toggle button. This is just, yeah, hello world. And so, yeah, you can see how that works. We'll save that, and we'll go into the API, and you can see this is the data, this is the value coming back from the database. And so let's but we don't want it as plain text. So we're gonna encrypt this one with two hooks, and one for encrypting before it gets saved to the database, and then one for decrypting when it gets pulled out of the database and we want to display it. So let's go back to the code, And let's open up our global settings. So here's where, and again, I have this all done in the video from yesterday. Here's that client secret field. Here's our custom component. And here's how you reference the path to that component. And then now all we need are some hooks. And let's go into the docs, payload docs, so you can see where I have looked this up myself. And let's see, fields, and then hooks, field hooks. So the one we're going to use is before change and after read. So before change, let's take a look at that one. Before change, immediately following validation, before change hooks will run within create and update operations. At this stage, you can be confident that the field data will be saved to the document, that the field data that will be saved to the document is valid in accordance to your field validations. So it's all clean, sanitized, whatever, validated data, and then it's going to be on its way to the database. And so that's what we want. That's where we want to encrypt the data. And then we have after read. So the after read hook is invoked after a field value is read from the database. This is ideal for formatting and transforming the field data for output. So yes, this is right after, uh, right when the data gets pulled out of the database and you're ready to display it. Therefore, we want to decrypt it in this case. And so yes, so before change or yeah, before change and after read. So let's add those. So here's our hooks. So we want before change, and these are arrays because you can have multiple hooks, and after read. Okay. And we could probably split these up into separate files, but I'm just going to do it inline for now. This is just a demo. But I would, in a real app, I would probably have a folder for all of my hooks and then files for the different functions, callback functions. So these are going to be async functions. We're not going to use bcrypt as I mentioned before. We want to we want to be able to decrypt it. So um, let's not use bcrypt, but on these hooks you get a request object, and on the request object you get payload. Payload is on there, and so we need payload has its own decrypt and encrypt functions. So we'll do request dot payload dot encrypt, and then value. Let's do a return here like that. I don't think, no, you don't return an object, you just return the value. There we go, that looks better. Okay, so that's the before change where we want to encrypt it. So let's go check that out in the browser, see how that works. So still hello world, and we go to the API, and it's still hello world. So we're going to be encrypting it when we save it, when it's on its way to the database. So let's save this. Let's change this to exclamation like that. Just make a change, and so we can save it. And look at that. It actually encrypted it. It encrypted the value, and now we're looking at this. This is the encrypted value of that hello world string. And if you go to the API, you can see the value in the database is the encrypted version of hello world. So now all that's left is we need to decrypt it back on its way out of the database so we can display it in its decrypted form back into hello world. And we do that with after read. And likewise, these are async functions. And instead of encrypt, you guessed it, we decrypt. And now we can look at the database or the admin panel. Still, it's still encrypted in the database. But if you go to the edit now, look at that. We have our plain text back ready for display. And so now we can put anything in here as plain text. And of course, we have our toggle so that, Snoop's looking over our shoulder can't see it. But now we save it. And let's look at the API. And hold on. Did it not? There's our plain text value. Um, wait, did it not? Oh, so I'm guessing that the API is not an accurate reflection of what's in the database. The after read hook will also add update the API as well, which I'm not exactly sure. I like that. We are using SQLite in this demo. And so let's open up the SQLite editor so that we can see what's actually in the database. I'm not confident that the API is an accurate reflection of what is in the database. So let's check. Let's open it up in the database. Okay, so I have the SQLite database open up in Table Plus, and we're going to look at this is our global settings that we created called auth settings. And if you go into here, here are the providers that we created. And yeah, so you can see here we have this client secret value that's encrypted. And so we can just, you can see here, this is the encrypted value. But the API, it looks like the after read hook does update the content of the API, but you can see the database is still encrypted. And so let's try that one more time just to sanity check here. So we have our before change where we encrypt it and then decrypt it when we read it and display it. So let's go back to here. And here's our yeah, API, hello world, and we go into the database, refresh this, and you can see the number, the value changed, and that is our encrypted value. So yeah, this is a fairly straightforward process, very easy. And the one thing I would warn, however, is the level of encryption. Now, at this moment, I'm not sure what algorithm or how that payload decrypts and encrypts those values. And so, um, use at your own risk. I would definitely want to before if I were to use this in production, I would first dig into the the algorithm. I would look into that function and see exactly what they're using to use the encryption. So, and then you make a judge. It's a judgment call as far as whether or not it's going to be good enough for your use case. So I'm going to be looking into that. But other than that, this was a fun little video to put out, and hope you got some value out of it. Let me know. And so thanks for stopping by. We'll see you in the next one.